thing to know is that this event will be recorded. So if you don't want your face to show up at any point, go ahead and turn your camera off. You can find your camera icon usually in the bottom left-hand corner of your Zoom screen. But that fact that it's recorded means it will be available for later viewing, and you may want to watch it again. We will take questions in the middle and also at the end. If you have a question as we go, please feel free to type it in the chat, or if you'd rather just say your question, you'll have a chance to do that at our question break and at the end. But in the meantime, I will probably mute us all so that we can hear the presentation a little bit better. And I think that's all the housekeeping. Thanks again for joining us. And thank you so much to Kat Sawyer, our presenter today. Kat, I know as a passionate and smart advocate for smart use of water, we have worked together on a board in San Francisco, and I'm so pleased to have her here today to share her expertise. Kat is the Greening Urban Watersheds Program Manager for the city of Richmond, where she constructs rain gardens and bioswales. And over the past decade, Kat has designed and built rainwater catchment systems in more than 25 San Francisco public schools, engaging volunteers in each unique school community in the process. So we're honored and thrilled to have her here today to talk with us about water reclamation for our backyard. And with that, I think that's enough from me. Kat, take it away.
Fantastic. Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Let me just check out. I can't seem to forward my slides, so I'm not sure what I've done. Okay, there I go. Oh, good. Now I'm better. So yeah, it's not for the city of Richmond, but for the Watershed Project, which is located in Richmond. That's the nonprofit that I work for. And I've done a lot of rainwater catchment in schools and really got so interested in capturing the rain. So tonight, the agenda is going to go that we are going to first talk about treating water and rainwater as a resource. And then we're going to dig deep into some rainwater harvesting installation techniques. And then I will touch on rain gardens and green infrastructure, because all of these things kind of piece together. And as Kate said, please feel free to add a question to the chat anytime. And if it's anything really pressing, she can let me know. And then otherwise we will have a break in the middle and then at the end to answer questions. And I would be, delighted to have some conversations with you about your questions about rainwater harvesting. And if you're planning on putting in a system, if you have any kind of technical questions you'd like answered, I'd be happy to do that. Okay, so let's see here. Why is it being so strange? I don't understand why it's, okay, there we go. So, oops, it went back, it's a little, sorry you guys, there's just a little delay. So that's what's happening. I got a little ahead of myself here. So the first thing I wanna do is remind everyone that we all live in a watershed, but we just don't think about it all the time. We live in our life in the city, we don't think about where our water is coming from. So this photograph right here is the Hetch Hetchy this is where we get our water for the Bay Area. This is the headwaters in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. And actually, I'm going to cut my camera while I go so I can concentrate on the presentation. So here is a beautiful photo of the urban watershed that we live in, San Francisco. And you will notice that there's lots of hard surfaces. Water has no place to infiltrate and to drain away. It drains away quickly in pipes. We never really see it. As the rain comes down, it goes away and we don't get to notice it. But here is a nice diagram of a natural watershed. And I want you to notice that the rainwater is slowed and it's cleaned and it's filtered by soil and plants and that minimizes the runoff and it maintains high water quality all throughout. So you can see that the rain hits the trees, goes into little creeks and streams that feed into river, and it infiltrates into the ground and recharges the groundwater and aquifers. My apologies with the, okay, here we go. So, I mean, look at this. This is the Bay Area from space. And you could also say it's the gray area because it's paved. You know, every place where we are having a lot of people, we make streets and roads, and then our buildings have, you know, hard surfaces, and the water doesn't get to infiltrate. It runs off really quickly. So in cities, we tend to treat stormwater as a problem. We pave it, we pipe it, we pollute it. And what we really want to do is slow it and spread it and sink it. We want to try to treat stormwater as a solution, as a resource, and not a problem. So here is a nice photograph of gray infrastructure, pipes. And you know, pipes are really important water infrastructure. It's an easy way to move water around, but we need a parallel system to naturally manage water in cities and provide that buffer zone. Green infrastructure can do that. It makes urban environments more alive and more resilient. So here is another reason too, in San Francisco especially, we have a combined sewer system. So the stormwater on the streets is combined with wastewater from our homes to be treated in the sewer system, which is really great most of the time. But in heavy rains, the system gets overwhelmed and it can't handle all that water at once. So sometimes we get overflows of partially treated sewage that goes into the ocean. We just can't handle all the water that comes in sometimes. That's why it's really important to hold the water back from the system whenever we can. So one way that we can do that is to slow it by holding it in rainwater catchment systems. This is a really nice rainwater catchment system that I didn't build, but I love to visit it. It's at the Heron's Head Eco Center Park in the Bayview. And so managing stormwater with green infrastructure helps to spread it and sink it. And so a natural rainwater management is a passive way to capture that rainwater, is to build these special rain gardens on the side of the streets and let the water flow into that. And then that water can slowly infiltrate. It creates habitat. It reduces flooding. It helps to keep our stormwater out of the sewer, and it recharges our groundwater like a natural watershed. This is a slide from the Portland Green Streets program, because they get a lot of rain out there. The goal here is to kind of reorient people and make you think about having cities that behave like sponges. And we can make our cities become more like sponges and mimic natural watersheds by green infrastructure techniques like rainwater catchment and other things that are really nice. I'll show you this next slide here. You could have a green roof that slows water. You can put a bioswale in a parking lot. You can do a creek daylighting restoration project. Make sure that you have really water efficient structures and a lot of good open green spaces, and of course, harvesting the rain. So the goal here is to make you feel like you can be part of the solution. You know, we are faced with so many environmental challenges right now. It's really overwhelming. And whenever you do something proactive, it can make you feel less overwhelmed. So just find something that that you can do and do it where you are. That's the most important thing to think about whenever it comes to water use in your own water use. Is you can conserve, you can capture, you can think about in gray water systems, rainwater systems. You can make a rain garden. And these things just help keep you tuned into water a little bit more. And then you'll notice that you change the way that you use water. You conserve a little more when you think about it. So a lot of people, because we get all of our rain in the winter months, a lot of people say, why even harvest rain in the Bay Area? Well, you just saw that we have a combined sewer system, and so that's really good to take the pressure off of our municipal system. But you can also irrigate the plants that you have in your backyard, at least partially. It won't last you all summer long, but certainly it's nice to kind of cut into that water use. It reduces flooding whenever there's rains. It also, especially in the East Bay, can reduce erosion and pollution from local creeks that lead down into the bay. And there's the potential also for indoor use for toilets and laundry. And that takes a plumber for an installation, but it's actually the great way to make buildings work for us. Capture that rain and use it to flush toilets. Also, there's public education and public demonstration, which is how I kind of got into this. I was doing rainwater catchment in schools to help whenever schools had a garden, we would put in a rainwater system. This is a really simple, easy system that you can see it's kind of at a scale that would even work for a home. This is capturing off of a shade structure at E.R. Taylor. And then here's a bigger cistern in a school. This is Jefferson Elementary, and they did a big project where they depaved part of their playground yard, and then we put in a rainwater catchment system there. And then this is a community garden that was called the Free Farm. And I put this one in here too to show you that this is often what people put into their homes is a rain barrel, just a 50-gallon rain barrel. And so this is another way that you can think of how easy it is to put in a system. It doesn't have to be a really big system. It can be really simple and just be hooked up to one of your downspouts. And I want to let you know that if you are a San Francisco resident, the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission has a rainwater harvesting program where they will subsidize your rainwater catchment materials. So if you go and sign up online, you can go to the Urban Farmer Store and pick out a nice large cistern if you'd like, and they will give you a discount up to $350, or you could get one or two rain barrels that are just the 50-gallon that are free of charge. So Urban Farmers are a really good place to talk about, bring your photos of your where you're going to put your system and make sure that you get everything. They have good customer service to help people with rainwater catchment systems. But you can see here in the photo on the right that all they're doing there, they're not even cutting the downspout. They even have a special tool or a special part that lets you just to drill in your downspout and you don't have to cut it. Sometimes people get really intimidated when it comes to the point of having to cut a downspout on your house. You kind of stop for a second and say, whoa, can I do this? And this is an easy way to just put in a rain barrel if you're intimidated by making a big system at your home. But let's take a look at this. This is a nice system that was professionally installed in a home, and you could see there that it's got all the components are kind of shown really well. You can see that the roof is pitched, and the downspout they're capturing from the gutters on both sides and directing that water in the middle into the tank. You could see too that the tank is strapped for seismic safety, which is really important in the Bay Area. Also want to note that here at the bottom, You have a nice concrete foundation because water is heavy. It weighs 8.6 pounds per gallon. So when you have a big tank, this is actually a 620-gallon tank, that gets really heavy. And you want to make sure that you have the right kind of foundation underneath it. You don't have to have a concrete foundation. You could do a gravel bed underneath, but you just want to make sure that it's level and it's secure. And then you can see here in the foreground of the photograph, the overflow has been actually directed to a rain garden that's in process being built here. It's been kind of dug out. They haven't finished planting it at this point or adding the mulch, but an important part of a rainwater system is to let the overflow go into an area where there's plants so that it can continue to seep into the ground. So I wanted to show you a system here before I just kind of mention the components again and kind of, talk to you more about a list form. So, I mentioned the catchment surface, the roof. First thing you want to think about with a rainwater system is what's your roof surface? Is it clean? Metal is a really clean surface, but a lot of us have shingles. So, you want to think about how clean the surface is that you're capturing from, and how clean does the water have to be that you're using. A lot of people are just watering, normal plants in their yard. They're not necessarily watering edibles. You want to go the extra mile if you have edibles that you're watering with the rainwater. But the plants love rainwater, and it doesn't have any added chemicals in it, and they really thrive. So it's fantastic for that. The conveyance is everything from the gutter to the downspout, all the pipes that lead you to your tank. Then when it comes to the cistern, you want to think about how much water you're going to need to use, but size is often the limiting factor for that. You want to make sure that your tank is located close to the downspout and that you have an easy path to get that tank in place. Also, for the foundation, make sure that it's structurally sound. There's something here called a first flush diverter, which I'm going to show you in detail here. Just want to mention it. Also want to remind you that the plumbing should be light tight. So if you have a pipe, you want to paint it to make sure that the light doesn't get in and form algae, and make sure that the screens, that your tank has screens. And oftentimes a rainwater tank that you buy is already going to have screens to help make sure that you keep mosquitoes out. But these are the things you think about. And then the overflow to a pervious surface, so it doesn't just go to the storm drain. But if it needs to go to the storm drain, no problem. You're capturing, you're holding, then you're releasing. So let me show you here. I showed you the list, but here's a really nice diagram that's showing all these pieces again. So looking at the roof, you have your catchment surface. A lot of the times, I go talk to people and they say, I really want to put a rainwater system in our community garden or something. And you look around and there's not a lot of place to actually capture. You need a capturing surface that's near your plants to actually make this work. Then you see the gutter there, and the gutter is going to be sloped to go to where to go towards the downspout, and make sure that water is flowing in the right direction. Then you have the leaf catcher that keeps those leaves out, but you can also put a gutter guard on the top of your gutter to further keep leaves out of the gutter. Sometimes you maybe have a nice big tree over your house, and you want to make sure that the leaves don't get in. So you start with keeping everything out from the gutter, then to the downspout, and then this first flush filtration system that I'll show you. So this is a nice diagram of a whole system that's actually overflowing into a rain garden. So let's see, let me show you how this works. So this is just before it's raining. And the one thing I'll just note is that these little bollards here in the front is how this tank is seismically shown to be secured. So that's something that sometimes people do, is pour a little concrete bollard that holds that tank in, especially with this one that's called a slim line. So it's actually, not round and and short and stubby. It's a taller one that doesn't have a lot of depth. So you want to make sure that something like that really is seismically sound. So then the rain is starting. You can see it's starting to flow into this first flush filtration system. And so the first flush holds the dirtiest water from the beginning of the rainstorm. You can imagine when the rain first starts, that surface is dirty. So you let this water go into this first flush tube, and there's a ball that's there that rises as the water starts to fill up. And once it gets to the top of where the pipe goes to the cistern, there's a little gasket that it hits, and it closes that off and lets the water start flowing into your tank. So it starts to fill up. Then that cleaner water is what goes in there. And it's just a really simple way to just give you the first 10 minutes of a rain or something like that. Does all that water drains out and drains away slowly over time. And then the cleaner water starts flowing into your tank. And then the important piece here to keep it all on site if you can is to have a rain garden that's really close to the overflow, or that can be directed to the overflow. And the good thing about a rain garden is that it also is beautiful, and you want to keep it 6 feet away from your home's foundation, so you don't do anything that could harm your home. But the rain gardens are a really nice way to take all of that rain and make sure that it's sinking into your property. So people always want to know about sizing the cistern, and there's a good rule of thumb for that. But before I tell you that, I would just say the main thing is, in California, you want to get as big of a tank as you possibly can, because we're going to have a lot of rain, and then it's not going to rain for a while. So as big as you feel like you could use, and as big of a tank as you could get through your gate is a good size. But so the rule of thumb is 0.6 gallons per square foot for 1 inch of rain on a rooftop. So if you have 1 inch of rain on 1,000 square foot roof, you can collect 600 gallons of rainwater in that 1 inch rain. And how that, for the Bay Area, we average 23 inches of rain per year. And so the equation is, let's say for 1,000 foot roof, which is a really good or a square foot roof, that's those bungalows that I showed you at the schools. You see those at schools all around San Francisco. Those are about 1,000 square feet. If you take that 1,000 square feet times 0.6 times 23 inches per year, you get over 13,000 gallons of water per year. That's a whole lot of water that we could be saving and reusing. And so in really people aren't going to have enough room to put a 10,000 gallon cistern in their yard. So often what you do is you get as big of a tank as you can, and you, in between rains, you go ahead and let that water drain out in the rainy months, try to use it. And then as it gets closer to the time whenever we're going to have our dry months, then you start to make sure and hold on to that rain and save it. So that's the news about sizing the cistern, is that even in a place like the Bay Area, where we really feel that we have a lot of drought conditions, it can still collect a lot of water from even a small space. So think about it for your home, especially when it comes to the program that you could get the materials paid for. All of a sudden it becomes easier and easier to think about doing this at your house. And so here's a nice little system that was put in where they cut their downspout. They directed that into tanks that are connected at the top because they're stepped down the hill. And then the maintenance of your rainwater system is really pretty simple. You want to just keep those gutters and screens clean. You want to clean your leaf filter. You want to make sure every fall before the rainy season starts, clean out your gutters, rinse the tank out. Um, and then the places where leaks often happen are connection points. So you want to look at the points where your pipes come out from your tank. That's often where a leak will happen. And it's great to observe your system when it rains. It's really fun when you put your rainwater system in, then you go outside when it's raining and you can hear that rain falling into the tank. It's fulfilling. You know that it's happening. So I wanted to stop here for a moment and see if anyone had any questions about this, because this is a good time to talk about all the information you just absorbed.
Thank you, Kat. So much great information. We do have a couple of questions coming up in the chat.
Great.
One of them is around what's the best way to clean out the rainwater barrels? Should you use bleach, or how do you get rid of sediment? What about algae?
Well, I have to say that just even rinsing them out really good, sometimes a little vinegar solution, a little diluted vinegar solution. Just want to make sure that you don't need bleach. Vinegar should be enough if you even need that. I've seen tanks go for years and years without even really being cleaned, and they do pretty well. I would just say that whenever you're draining your tank out from that, if you use vinegar, just make sure that you're not having that go into your plants, because that's gonna alter the pH. Be careful with that part. But yeah, any other ones?
Yeah, Anne had a comment that her roof shingles, use roof shingles in a modified bitumen roof, and she's not sure if that water would be suitable for watering plants after it came off the roof. So does roof composition matter for what you can do with the water you've collected?
It really does. It really does. Good question, Anne. And what I've seen is that a lot of us have shingles. The worst roof for rainwater catchment for edible plants is actually tar and gravel, which is a really common roof substrate that we have here. The reason why that's not good is because the gravel lets little things get in there. So maybe some bird poop or some detritus and something like that kind of gets in between the rocks and doesn't get to kind of flow out. So the cleanest surfaces are surfaces that are pretty clear, like metal's a really good one. You know, the bitumen roof that you mentioned, depending on what you're watering. If you're just going to be watering your plants you're not going to be eating, shouldn't be a problem. But the bitumen roof is a tar. It's a oil product, a petroleum product. So what I've seen often happen is, if you can isolate the parts of the roof that you're capturing from, perhaps maybe you're capturing only from one downspout, you can actually put a food grade paint on that part of the roof, and then you know that it's really clean. And one thing to also remember is that any kind of roof is going to off gas when it's newer. So if you have a roof that's been there for a while, it's pretty much kind of exhausted a lot of the stuff that's not good for you, and you can be a little more sure that you got a safer product at the end there. But yeah, various stages, various ways of cleaning and filtrating the water before it gets into your plants. The first flush helps, you know.
On a similar note, what about asphalt roof tiles? Are they going to change what you can do with the water?
You mean just the asphalt roof tiles? You mean like the shingles or the?
I think so, yeah. Homer was asking, how about asphalt tiles?
Huh. I mean, I don't. I've seen things that are just our normal. I guess that he's probably talking about normal kind of roof shingle tiles. Those are the most common kind of roof, and people capture water from that all the time. And that's where I would just say, if you've just put on a brand new roof, you may want to hold off because it's kind of going to be pretty active on the off gassing for a bit. But if it's been there a while, you should be okay. And definitely want to make sure if you're going to be putting that water on edibles, to go ahead and put in a first flush filtration system. So not every system needs a first flush, but if you're going to be putting that water on to plants that you're going to eat, it's best to have the cleanest water that you can.
Great, thank you. And then Denise is asking, is rainwater capture better than piping washer effluent into the garden?
You know, gray water's fantastic as well. And laundry to landscape is very simple. Great. And actually this program that San Francisco has, the San Francisco PUC, you could also get a subsidized kit for laundry to landscape system. So, you know, gray water's great. Gray water is really good for hardy trees with extensive root systems, fruit trees. The gray water isn't as good for things like your garden plants, you know, your edible plants. You never want to send your gray water to food that you're going to eat. Although if you water a fruit tree with it, then that fruit grows and you can of course eat that. So, but you know, gray water is great. What's so good about rainwater catchment is that it's just a part of the wheel of choices that you have around water reclamation, water stewardship that you can do for your home. So if you get excited about it, you maybe put in a rainwater system and then see how easy it is to put a gray water system in. And if you have your washer at the back of your house in your utility room, and then your backyard is right out there, make sure that your yard doesn't go up for gray water laundry landscape. You're actually using the pump that is turning and spinning your washer to get that water out. That's the same, that you're just using that same pump action to get the water out to your plants. So you want to make sure that it's not going uphill. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, gray water is fantastic. And there are classes on that as well if you're interested.
And then one more question about sort of the usability of the water that we harvest. Rebecca asks, what about the first rain after all these fires? Should we wait until the second real rain?
Oh boy.
Let some of that stuff wash out?
That's a great question. I think so. I mean, I think there's been so much ash in the air. That's probably a great thing to do, is kind of just let that water drain off, and then wait for the next one before you start to really capture. But if you have your system in place, it's going to start catching, you know, so you can't keep it out. So that's why the first flush filter is really good in that circumstance. Rebecca, do you have a system?
Rebecca, go ahead and unmute if you'd like to. Oh no, she says no, we use gray water.
Okay, cool, good.
Another question, does rainwater harvesting come under the category of blue-green interface?
Oh my goodness, wow. Tell me more about this blue-green interface. You stumped me. I don't know.
We have a policy
Seems like
wonk.
it does. What is it?
Well, WN, would you like to unmute or add more in the chat? And while we perhaps wait for a person to type, there are some questions about whether or not the discounted hardware for doing this is available in cities like Fremont and Oakland. Is it just San Francisco?
Okay. The discounted hardware. Yes. It is a San Francisco program. You got to put pressure on your municipalities. East Bay Mud, actually East Bay Mud they subsidize a gray water 3-way valve, which is the most expensive part of the gray water installation. So they do try to help with that. And Oakland used to have a rain barrel program, but it was a kind of it was a one-time thing that was happening, and it didn't continue. But you know, I'd say the Urban Farmer Store has a Richmond location as well, right there by American Soil, and you should just drop in if you really are interested. There you could price out your system, and as long as you have an idea of what you what you want to do and you have enough knowledge to put it in yourself. It could be relatively simple and not too expensive. If you have tools, if you have a power drill, few things that you'll need. That's the good thing about rainwater catchment is that it's, it's a pretty simple, approachable task for people who are kind of just do-it-yourself homeowner type. It's something that people find that they can do pretty well, pretty easily.
That's great. And Rebecca has just put a very helpful link in the chat. San Mateo County has a rebate program.
Oh, hey, that's great to know. Thanks. I didn't know that. And, these things kind of come and go. And so that's fantastic that they have that. And, it seems like with the persistent drought conditions that we know we're going to be facing, these municipalities are going to be trying to subsidize this activity as much as possible.
So that information, in case you're not able to see the chat field, it is at flowstobay.org, flowstobay.org. Also, sort of on the note of using our water smarter, Denise is asking, how can we stop using drinking quality water to flush our toilets?
Oh God, so true. That is what we need. What we're talking about here with these rainwater catchment systems is a retrofit often. We don't have these things already kind of hooked up in our home, but that is what we need. We need our houses to be designed to where you have your rain flows on your roof, goes down to a cistern, maybe underneath, and then gets pumped up to flush toilets and do laundry. That is the dream, to continue that water flow going through. And then the gray water can be added. You think about how much there are the three most water intensive things in our home are toilets, laundry, and landscape, believe it or not. Those are the three most water intensive things that people use in their homes. And when you connect laundry and landscape, you've actually done a great thing. And then when you're looking at toilets, you want to make sure you have a low flow toilet. But really what we need to have is a connection from our sink to the toilet. So we actually wash our hands, that gray water goes into the tank for the toilet, and then you flush the toilet. Because the thing about gray water is that it starts to smell bad if it's around for about more than 24 hours. But we know that our toilets flush, often in a day. So having a sink that's connected to the toilet is something that really needs to happen. And I feel like residential rainwater catchment is a way to make people more aware of these things, and then they will maybe advocate for them more, put a little bit more pressure on their municipalities to offer these kind of things. And then also, there these new buildings now, if they're, I think it's 5 in San Francisco, 5,000 square feet or more, so pretty sizable building, but they have to capture every drop of water that falls on the roof. So they start to design and build these newer developments that actually flush toilets, have a gray water system that's already built in. So, this is where we need to do more, and where design and engineering comes in on the front end. And that's why, anybody here who's, this is the Bay Area Science Festival. And so, there may be people out there who are thinking about being engineers or architects or, planners and things like that can get to work on these things and keep pushing them. So the architecture field has definitely become more kind of oriented towards these kind of working buildings, but that's what we need, is more working buildings. Keep it all together keep everything on site.
Absolutely. So there's some more great questions in the chat, and I promised you guys a chance to unmute, but Kat, I know that you have more content to share.
I do, but I'm happy to answer questions. I'm going to go over after this was the kind of the main focus, so I want to make sure and answer some questions. So maybe I could take 1 or 2 more, and then we could keep going.
Okay. Is it possible with filtration and sedimentation to make rainwater drinkable?
Yes, it is. Well, it definitely is, and is it takes uh, more high tech filtration. So that's a professional installation where you have it runs through a UV light, and I think another kind of a carbon filtration. But it's definitely, that's more high tech than what I've done in schools, and but definitely that is possible, and it's something that people do whenever they have the means to really get their house completely dialed in. People can drink rainwater, and out in areas where they might not have access, people do, and they send it through a sand filter, and then drink it. But yeah, rain is pretty clean when it comes to it. It's really what's in the air on the way in the surface that it hits. But you know, it's something that we could start looking at more and more, for sure.
All right, and some questions about, well, first one, Santiago was mentioning or asking, is there already something that does that, or does it still need to be invented? I think that's about the moving the water from your sink to the toilet to use the gray water to flush the toilet. Is that a purchasable thing right now?
It's not. It's not. I've only seen like a diagram of it, a drawing. But no. But what they do have that is purchasable is it's a little faucet that goes on top of your toilet tank, so that when you flush, and this is at the Urban Farmer store actually on Vicente. If you go to get your rainwater tank, go to the bathroom when you're there. Um, so the when you're washing when you flush the toilet, clean water comes out of this spigot that what am I saying? The faucet that's on top of the tank, and you wash your hands. Then that gray water goes into the toilet tank, and the gray water flushes the toilet. So yeah, you can get one. I've heard it's for sale, that they have them at a plumbing store on Terraval. Um,
That's good to know.
yeah.
And then can you talk a little bit about permeable paving?
Hmm.
It's slightly off topic for us today, but there were some questions about, like, what do we do about, driveways where people are sort of paving over their front yard areas to make more parking? How can that be sort of water friendly?
Yeah, it's another great question, and I'll be talking about rain gardens next, which is really about letting the earth capture the rain. So it's a good segue for that. Um, Permeable paving is good. Again, probably a professional installation, because it really takes some skill to get that to where it's something that works for your driveway. But another thing that's happening is that they have concrete that's actually permeable now, that you can you can pour the water in, and they show you, and it trickles through. So they more and more things are coming online that are offering this kind of this kind of permeability with paving. So yeah, it's great. And of course, you've seen those little permeable pavers that are in sidewalk gardens, or along the city, around the city. So that'll show you, and that's actually something that you can do, is remove some of your sidewalk, get some permeable paving, and there's a sidewalk removal permit that is pretty approachable with San Francisco. So the more you get into it, the more you can do. Okay, so
Okay.
did I keep going?
Yeah, why don't you show us some more inspiration, and then
Okay.
we'll do
Some
questions
more at the
in the
end.
chat or by unmuting.
Sounds great. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, let's see here. Is it working? Oh, my apologies. Here we go. Okay, so this is a really nice diagram of a rain garden, and rain gardens are something you can do in your home. It's residential scale green infrastructure. You've probably heard the term green infrastructure. It's kind of a buzzword right now, because it's really getting some traction, and that's great. And a rain garden is just a really nice, simple way that you can keep rain in your property and safely allow for it. You're inviting it in. And so you can see here in this diagram that you dig down, you make kind of a depression, a little ditch. You dig out some soil and you mix that native soil with some compost to amend it. And you put special plants in that can handle having a lot of water come in at once and then drying out in between. And you have your entryway, your inlet that's a little bit higher than your outlet. And let me show you another. Well, just before I go there, I'll just say that rain gardens and swales and bioswales, oh my, they are a way to help mimic the functions of a natural watershed. So they're what you can direct your runoff into these specially designed landscapes that allow rainwater to infiltrate and percolate into the earth and be cleaned by natural systems, by plant and soil. And so that's when you say slow it, spread it, sink it, these rain gardens help you to sink it. And you've seen some curb cuts probably around the city of San Francisco that directs the stormwater into these little rain gardens. There's also something called bioswales that are a little bit more engineered because their overflow is connected to a drain so that it overflows. So when it gets too much water in the bioswale, it actually can go into the sewer system as an overflow mechanism. So that's a little bit more engineered. But I'll show you this really nice diagram here of a rain garden. And just to say that one thing that's missing here is that it would be great to have a rainwater tank right around here and then have the overflow go into this rain garden. But rain gardens are great for downspouts. I mean, a lot of the time people just do a little downspout that they direct to a rain garden, and that can just help to keep the water in percolating into the ground, but not have it be flooding. And let's see, I mentioned the water loving plants that go at the bottom here. One plant that it really loves rain gardens is gray rushes. They are nice, hardy, kind of grassy looking rush plant. They can really handle having a lot of water saturating and then to drying out in between. And then on the sides of your rain garden, you plant plants that like water, but maybe don't like their feet to be wet in the water. So that's a rain garden. And then look how nice it looks when you actually coordinate and do an effort together as a neighborhood. And you can see here, I hope you can see my arrow. You can see that there's a little curb cut here on the street and the water flows in. So you can see that that's happening here and here. And look how nice that looks when you create a green corridor on your street and you create some native habitat and you attract some beneficial insects and pollinators. And before you know it, you've really changed the look and feel of your street. And another thing that rain gardens can do, swales, is just be a buffer zone. I mean, look at this. This is not California. This is in Alabama, actually. So it's not a California plant palette. But I wanted to show it to you because it's just a really nice way of showing how if you have these plants along the side of the street, it can just be a good buffer zone and just hold that water in. And then here is what San Francisco, we're a paved city, does to create rain gardens. So these are the green infrastructure as we've noticed them probably all around San Francisco. You've seen them down Cesar Chavez. This is Mission right around Valencia. So this is a way for the rainwater to flow into the ground and create a nice little garden that it makes the city a little bit more softer edges and more green and just feels better. And then I want to show you something that I think is a real inspiration. This is actually a project in Seattle that it's the Aurora Bridge. Look what they've done. they took stormwater from a bridge and directed it into green infrastructure, big planted area, and they're cleaning that water before it heads back into the natural body of water. And this is, and you can notice here too that they're capturing rain and making it go to toilet flushing as well. So this is something that we can work towards. This is big vision. This is what we need to be doing to scale up this kind of idea. And you know, it's been done. So as we kind of look at ways to mitigate freeway pollution, this is one way to think about it. Create special landscapes that are going to take that water and clean it and make it to where it doesn't pollute the natural body of water, because that's often what's happening, is that the water from the freeway with all the car asbestos from the brakes and all that kind of stuff is going in, all the heavy metals, that's going right into waterways. And that's something that we can stop if we slow it and spread it and sink it. And the last thing I want to leave you guys with is some inspiration, just looking at how people have managed water over time. You know, rainwater has always been something that people have captured all over the world. And this is an ancient step well in India. It's kind of like a water temple. You know, they get these monsoons where they have the rain that comes in so quickly and a deluge of water, and they need to handle it really quickly before it floods everything. And so they built all these beautiful step wells, and they and here's another shot of it. See, so as the water retreats, you just go further and further down to get it, and you go walk back out with it. And this is a photo from National Geographic, so I have a feeling that it was staged, you know, just to show how it would have been, because they don't use these anymore. They're beautiful. But this is just something that I've just always thought were so beautiful to see how when you're purposeful about how you're trying to capture the rain, what can happen. I mean, look at that. So yeah, let's see if there's any other questions. I'm happy to answer them, and really glad that you guys attended. And I hope you're going to all go out and do what you can to get a rain barrel. What do we have for questions?
Thank you, Kat, so much. Well, we have a couple of shout outs, one for native plants in general.
Great.
And the California Native Plant Society at cnps.org.
They're wonderful.
And Kathy's shouting out Urban Farmer. She says they helped her with the pipe fitting on her barrel.
They are wonderful. I have to say that, you know, these are some resources that I wanted to make sure and share. You know, the Watershed Project where I work, the Public Utilities Commission, sfwater.org, and the urbanfarmerstore.com. They are just, they carry everything. They have a good mind for customer service. They don't make you feel stupid for asking a question. And if you're putting in a rainwater system, it's really good to kind of draw it up, take some photos of the area where you're going to put the tank and your downspout, and bring all that in, and make sure that you get everything that you need. And they will definitely help you. So yeah, good shout out for them.
Okay, and then a bunch more questions.
Great.
Can you open the rain barrels for cleaning?
Yes, you can. Oftentimes the rain barrels come with just a lid that kind of it locks in place, so it doesn't just fly off in a windy rainstorm. But you can unhook it and take it off and put a hose in and clean that up and then drain it out. Mm-hmm.
If you're thinking about putting in a system, how much should one budget for a single family home?
Okay. And are you thinking about are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to hire someone? I would say you want to get as big of a tank as you can. And if you're going to have it professionally installed, you know, maybe it would be few thousand, a couple of $1,000s, maybe not. I mean, if you do it yourself, you can save a lot of money. If you feel comfortable with that, and There's actually a really good rainwater harvesting manual that the PUC has online that you can kind of remind yourself. So, I would encourage you to see if you feel comfortable doing it on your own, if you feel like you have a simple enough circumstance. But if you have kind of if you live on a hillside and and you're going to have to really do some things to make sure that you have it level and a solid foundation, you may want to bring in a professional and just get that help.
Great. A couple of stumpers. Will San Francisco code allow 2 adjacent houses to collect and share a large rain tank?
Oh, probably not, but I don't think so. One thing that triggers the code, the building code, is if you disconnect from your sewer. So if you have a downspout that actually drains into the sewer system, they're going to want you to get a permit or get to a building permit for that. Otherwise, if you have a downspout that just kind of overflows and just kicks out into the ground, you don't need a permit for that. You don't need a permit if you have a tank that isn't too big, but once you get, I think, 5,000 gallons or above, the more complex, the heavier it gets. They're going to, if you put a pump on it, they're going to want you to get, you're adding electricity, so they're going to want you to get a permit for that. If you have it on a rooftop, they're going to want you to get a permit. But awesome, that is great for you to think about with your neighbor capturing. But I would also say that you'd be surprised at how much water you're going to capture off of just your roof. So you may not need to combine efforts like that in order to get a bunch of water. As long as you capture as much as you can, I think you'll find that your limiting factor is going to be how much room you have in the backyard and how much you want to give to a tank or series of tanks.
This one's pretty specific, so Adam, we might ask you to hang out a little bit, and Kat, if you need to get into it. But Adam has a circular.
Adam, what do you have?
I know. Adam has a circular downspout, 2.75 inches in diameter.
Okay.
And hasn't found an obvious diverter system that fits. Any ideas?
Wow, they did it. They gave you kind of have it's not 2-inch and it's not 3-inch. It's 2.75. Well, that's a tough one. They do have when I mentioned that you have that part that actually lets you drill into a downspout. They have one for the rectangular, and then they have one for round. The round one looks kind of like Batman, like it's like this rubber piece that you compress, and then you stick into the hole that you drill into the downspout, and it expands, and it pushes up against the inner walls of your downspout, and then lets that water come in. So Urban Farmer has a part that just might work because it has that flexibility that maybe it wouldn't collect every drop that's coming down, but it may be enough to make it worth your while. So I would say check out the Urban Farmer for a really simple diverter for a downspout diverter. And Adam, if you want to keep in contact with me, I can make sure and send you a photo of what I'm talking about so you know what to ask for. But they'll help you. They'll know. And then I guess the only thing I was thinking is if you're going to be cutting your downspout, you can always maybe cut and then use another part to kind of get to a diameter pipe that works better for what you're trying to do.
That's it. I won't take up any time, but that's actually what I was doing. I did find this like flexible rubber collar. I was going to cut the downspout. You put that in, it goes from basically this 3-inch, because it's flexible. I felt like the 3-inch, I could always kind of, secure it in some way, fasten it. And then that actually then goes down to basically as a 2-inch diameter opening that I could always connect, a separate tube that would then go down into my rain barrel.
Yep.
All right,
but
you guys.
I'm definitely going to the Urban Farm store. I'd never heard of it. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, Adam. I mean, they are great. And do you live in this? Do you own in San Francisco, or do you
Yep.
then, yeah, fill out that form on the Urban Farmers website, and you could get a great discount. Are you thinking about getting a bigger tank than just a 50-gallon barrel?
I didn't know about the program. I already bought a 55-gallon tank. So
Where'd you buy it from? Not Urban Farmer?
no, it's called My Rain Barrel. It's actually really beautiful, but it doesn't,
Cool.
it's fine. I don't care about it. The
Yeah.
rebate doesn't really matter.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes that's not really the driving point. It's people are doing this because they care. They're trying to kind of be more aligned and tuned in.
That's
So
right.
I get you.
That's right.
And thanks for doing that, because that's how we get some places. People start to pay attention, and then collectively it just starts to get to where it's more and more on the minds of people. And then you get something like an intense drought, and all of a sudden everybody wants to think about it more, and so it kind of it grows. Yeah.
So I do want to acknowledge that it is 6 o'clock, but we're going to keep Kat around for
Great.
another 10 minutes or so. So
Yeah.
2 more questions from the chat, and then get ready to
Good.
unmute.
Okay.
How long will a rain barrel last being out in the elements? Matt wants to know.
Good question, Matt. These are pretty durable. This is food grade plastic, number one, which is great. Gosh, I would say, I mean, that's, I wouldn't, I've seen systems in for easily, I've put systems in that have been there, over 10 years and nothing's changed. One thing that they've actually done in places that I think it was Australia, where they've really done a lot of rainwater catchment because they're very dry climate. A lot of rainwater technology was developed there. They actually went and tested water to see, how it was doing in tanks over time, and the water doesn't degrade. It does really well. So I think, I can't speak for, the life of plastic, but I mean, look at us, look at this. I mean, all the plastic that we have, they tell us that it's still around even when we're gone. So I would say, if you have a tank that you buy that is, pretty good quality tank, it's going to be in there as long as 20 years longer. So it's definitely worth it.
And Jeremiah asks, any suggestions when our roof's downspout is internal and is connected directly to the sewer? Our plan is to build a shed out back with a roof to collect rainwater.
That's a good plan, because once it's internal, you're stuck, because you can't capture it. That's one thing that when you're starting to look around and think, okay, where are my downspouts? That's the important piece when you have to have something accessible that you can grab onto. So you're better off going ahead and just getting a tool shed that you can capture off of. And in that case, if you're putting one in, try to get a metal roof for the top of that so that it can be really clean rainwater, and you can capture as much as you can and then water those vegetables with it. And that is one thing that you really can independently. You can, when you have a small roof like that, you can really make sure that it has the cleanest kind of roof surface easily. Even if it has like asphalt shingles, you can even paint those with a food grade paint and make sure that is clean water for you.
Great.